My name is Lisa, and I am 35 years old now. Today, I want to share my story with you. It's not easy for me to talk about, but it's my reality. Sometimes, life feels heavy, but maybe by telling this, I will feel lighter. Maybe someone out there will relate to my words and understand my pain. Let me take you back to when I was just 19 years old. I was a quiet and shy girl, full of hopes and dreams, living in a small town. My family was very traditional and had strong beliefs about life. They always said a woman's main purpose was to marry and take care of her home. They believed love was not necessary, only respect and responsibility mattered in marriage. At that time, I had my own dreams, simple but important to me. I wanted to study, explore the world, and live in a big city full of opportunities. But my dreams were shattered the day my parents told me they had chosen a husband for me. His name was David, and he was 24 years old. He was an architect and came from a respectable, well-known family. My parents smiled and said, "You are lucky, Lisa. He is responsible and kind." But all I could think was, what about my feelings? What about my choice in life? A week later, I met David for the first time. He was polite, spoke gently, and asked me simple questions. He asked if I liked reading and if I needed anything to feel comfortable. I didn't say much because, deep inside, I already knew my future was decided for me. 1 month later, I became his wife. The wedding was grand, filled with music, decorations, and hundreds of guests. People kept telling me, "You look so beautiful, Lisa. You are so lucky," but I didn't feel beautiful. I didn't feel lucky at all. I felt like a stranger in my own life, standing in a dream that wasn't mine. I smiled for everyone, but deep inside, I wanted to scream and run away. I wanted to shout, "This is not what I want for my life." But instead, I stayed quiet. After the wedding, I moved into David's house, my new home. He was kind and tried his best to make me feel comfortable. He asked, "Do you like the curtains in our room? Should we buy a new chair?" I always replied with the same words, "It's fine, David." He was a good man, but the truth was, I didn't love him. One evening, while we were sitting together, he looked at me and asked, "Lisa, are you happy? Do you feel at home here?" I forced a small smile and said, "Yes, of course, David." But deep inside, my heart whispered, "No, this will never feel like home." At night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I felt like I was trapped in a life that didn't belong to me. I wanted to cry, to scream, to tell someone how lost I felt. But I didn't even have the strength to express my pain. After a year, David's family started asking about children. His mother said with excitement, "It's time for a baby, Lisa. A child will bring you both closer." David smiled at the thought, full of hope and happiness, but inside, I felt anxious, worried, and completely unready for such a responsibility. How could I bring a child into this world when I didn't even know who I was? One night, while sitting on the balcony, I finally gathered the courage to tell David, "I don't think I'm ready to have a baby yet." He looked at me with surprise but not anger. "Why not, Lisa?" "What's wrong?" he asked, trying to understand. I hesitated for a moment and then softly said, I don't feel ready yet. He held my hands gently and said, I understand, Lisa, but my parents keep asking, maybe it's time for us to start a family. I wanted to scream, but what about what I want? What about my dreams? But instead, I stayed silent. I nodded slowly and whispered, okay. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. Everyone in the family was overjoyed and excited about the news. David's mother had tears in her eyes and said, "This is the happiest day of my life." David looked at me with pure happiness, his face glowing with joy, but I felt nothing. I stood there, surrounded by smiling faces, yet I felt completely empty inside. It was as if I was slowly disappearing into a life that was never mine. During my pregnancy, I tried not to look in the mirror too much. I didn't want to see a woman I no longer knew. But one day, I saw my reflection by accident. I stopped, looked closely, and felt deep sadness inside. My face was pale, my eyes had lost their light, and my heart felt empty. I placed my hand on my belly and softly asked, "Who are you?" I wanted to cry, but even my tears were gone. Months later, I gave birth to a baby boy, and we named him Noah. He was small, soft, and innocent, and for the first time, I felt love in my heart. But even that love was not enough to fill the emptiness I had carried for years. 2 years later, I had a daughter, Mia. She was beautiful, with bright eyes and a sweet smile. I loved my children deeply, but inside, I was still struggling. I still felt like I was trapped in a life I never wanted for myself. As years passed, David and I spoke less and less. Our conversations became short, empty, and predictable. "Did you sleep well?" he asked in the morning. "Yes, I did," I replied, even when I hadn't slept at all. "Do you need anything from the store?" he asked in the evenings. "No, I'm fine," I answered, even though I wasn't fine at all. I buried my feelings deep inside and never spoke about my pain. I was afraid of what people would say if I left, afraid of how David's family would react, afraid of how my own parents would see me, afraid of being judged by society. So I stayed silent and suffered in loneliness. Then, one night, everything changed. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the empty table in front of me. It was my 34th birthday, and I had never felt so lost. David sat across from me, watching me carefully. After a long silence, he finally said, "Lisa, what's wrong? I know you are not happy." I wanted to lie again, but this time, I couldn't. I took a deep breath, gathered all my courage, and spoke the truth. "I'm not happy, David. I haven't been happy for years. I never wanted this marriage, this life, this future. I never wanted to be a wife or a mother. I wanted something different for myself." His face turned pale with shock. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked with sadness in his voice. "Because I was scared," I whispered, tears filling my eyes, "scared of hurting you, scared of disappointing my parents, scared of being judged by everyone around me." David was silent for a long time, then finally sighed, "Lisa, I always knew deep inside. I kept hoping that one day you would love me, but now I see that I was wrong. His words hurt me deep inside, breaking something within me. For the first time in so many years, I allowed myself to cry. The next morning, I quietly packed a small bag with my essentials. I hugged Noah and Mia tightly, whispering that I love them so much. I held them close, feeling their warmth as tears filled my eyes. David stood silently by the door, watching me with a heavy heart. "Take care of yourself, Lisa," he said softly, his voice full of emotion. "You deserve to be happy, even if it's without me." I nodded, unable to find the right words to respond. Then, with deep breaths, I stepped outside, walking into the unknown. It has been a whole year since I left that house behind. Now, I live in a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it's my own space. It's quiet, peaceful, and a place where I can finally breathe freely. I started painting again, something I loved as a child but had forgotten. I see Noah and Mia every weekend, and seeing them happy makes my heart lighter. Leaving was one of the hardest things I've ever done. There were nights filled with doubt, wondering if I made the right choice, but I have learned something truly important along the way. Courage doesn't mean being fearless all the time. It means choosing to move forward, even when fear tries to hold you back. For the first time in my life, I am living for myself and no one else. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is certain: I will never lose myself again, no matter what happens. If you were in my place, what would you have done? If you want to improve your English with more inspiring stories, don't forget to subscribe.